So I was introducing you to the audience. I was thinking that maybe you're the only person that I've had on twice now, but that was a by design on my part. So last time we talked about trauma and the how that ties in with disabilities and parenting disabilities, and I posted that earlier this week. But this time we want to talk about self-care and typically when we talk about self-care, we talk about self-care in the context of like going and getting a pedicure or having 5 minutes in the closet by yourself with no small humans touching you or something like that. There are other ways to talk about self-care and other more constructive ways to take care of yourself. So I know you're great at explaining that. Could you tell us more?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to start by saying like pedicures are awesome. I do. I try to get them once a month. Facials, I've been getting facials. Um, I want a closet parlor that can be my escape with a window seat. Like I have dreams for my closet, y'all. So it's not to say that these things are not self-care,
Mhm.
but I think one of the most important and beneficial ways that we can take care of ourselves is by truly understanding how our brains and our body work and collaborate together and helping our body to feel safe.
Yeah.
Like that is self-care to the nth degree. I think it's the foundation of self-care. And along with that is having a deep and immense understanding of how all the experiences that we've gone through in our lives impact how we show up in the present. And
Mm.
if we can truly understand how our brain and body are interpreting the experiences we've had before and how it shifts into gear to keep us safe and alive in the present, then we can start to take care of ourselves in a way that we probably never thought possible. And it begins to be this way of self-tending that, we can prevent ourselves from some of the things that we don't sometimes think is possible. I've heard so many people say like, I just couldn't help it. Like this thing happened and I just went off, or I just shut down, or I just did
Yeah.
this. We have these autonomic responses, which is it means your body is doing what it's supposed to be doing, brain and body collaboration. But for me, self-care is understanding what my body's trying to accomplish and do, and being able to help it understand when it's really in threat and when it's not.
Mm.
And to me, that takes the place of any manicure, pedicure, massage, or facial you can ever get. It's the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point because so often as caregivers of kids with brain-based disabilities, we are we are on the go constantly. We don't get to slow down. And so oftentimes when we're in the moment, we are responding exactly how it's just very, this is what my fight or flight response says to do in this moment. And so that's how I'm going to respond. And it's really hard to pull up that information. Even if we've been to like dozens of trainings. I am a trainer and I still in the moment, I'm like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? Oh, or later, I think about what I was supposed to do earlier. And so when we work on healing the parts of us that say, you're in danger when you're not in danger, then we're more likely to be able to respond in the ways we know. Even if we have that information in our pocket, we're more likely to be able to do that if we can. And I also think there's a possibility that your ability to relax when you're not under threat, like when you're saying, I'm gonna go get a pedicure and I'm gonna actually relax, maybe actually able to do that better if you have handled all of the other stuff. Um, so it's like the root of the tree of self-care, I think.
Yeah.
We as parents of kids with brain-based disability tend to know a lot about our kids' brains and how they may respond in a moment. And something that I've noticed a lot as I have learned more about all of this is like, I'm like, oh, I have sensory needs, right? I have days where I'm not responding like I should, and I got triggered by whatever from my own self. So as adults, as parents, you are a parent also, what are some ways that we in the moments can take a step back from maybe what's influencing us from our past and be more present?
Yeah, excellent question. And, as I'm getting ready to say this next part, one of my really best friends and lovely humans in the world, Sarah Buffy, pops up because when I say this, and we say it all the time. We're not inventing anything. We're just helping translate it for a lot of people.
Mhm.
But this next phrase, like I hear her voice and it's regulation is a practice, regulation as a practice, regulation as a
Mm.
practice, right?
Mhm.
And so I think what happens is we get stuck because we say, well, how can I in the moment do that? You can't unless you make
Mhm.
it a practice.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that has to be the thing that, the thing about the other forms of self-care like massage, pedicure, right? They're not consistent things that you do every single day. You make
Yep.
an appointment, even if it's regular, it's not consistent. It's
Mhm.
not constant, I should say. And so if it's every 2 weeks, that's every 2 weeks. The kind of self-care I am proposing, it's not an every 2 week thing. It
Mhm.
is a every moment trying to build in the practice of coming back to my breaths and noticing what's happening, paying attention to what's happening in my body, taking in information as data, not as a truth, right?
Mm.
So when something comes in, it's just a piece of data. My child is screaming at the top of their lung. We want to jump into, oh my God, make them be quiet, or oh my God, go save the day, when
Mhm.
we need to just take it, data, got it, right? And as we compile data points, then we can, through practice, respond in a way that makes the most sense for the safety and security of everyone involved. And so that would be my biggest thing. Like, how do we start these itty bitty steps towards practicing the power of the pause? I love the power of the pause. What that just means is conditioning myself to not respond right away.
Yeah.
And that is so counterintuitive to parenthood.
Yeah.
Parenthood is jump into action.
Yeah.
And how many times do we jump into action and make stuff worse? I
Right.
almost
Oh,
cussed.
all,
We
all the
just make
time.
it worse, right? Because we jumped into action based on this kind of autonomic response. When
Mhm.
one of the first things I would say for people to try to practice is the power of the pause.
Mm.
Very literally, practice giving yourself a count of five before you do anything,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And to be clear, like if your child's hands on the stove or they're about to run into the street,
Yes.
no, please don't go, well, I heard this chick on Aubrey's IG
That's
Live
what
say I should have
Lashonda
counted to
said.
five. Okay, now, but when you get the sass and the attitude that,
Mhm.
those perceptions of things that trigger us,
Mhm.
pausing, talking to your kids like, I'm going to be pausing. They
Mhm.
don't have to get it, but you're just setting the stage. This is something I'm going to be practicing. This
Mhm.
is something I want all of us to practice. So I think that's helpful, to just start slow. Take in information as data. What that person said and how my stomach contracted, data. Okay, that's good to know. And just different things like that I think will be helpful if we can just take it slow. I guess this is my big point, and
No,
just
that's great.
that can be very helpful.
This is my physical reaction as a parent when I get attitude, I feel like my eyes are gonna bug out of my head. And then I think to myself, I don't need to be here right now because I'm not gonna handle myself right. Like if I feel myself get out of control, then I'll say, I gotta go reset. And that's a good thing because I want my kids to know, to be able to feel that in their body and make that choice also. So that's not me failing as a parent. And I think sometimes we have this pressure that if we don't respond in the moment, then we actually don't know what we're doing as parents. But
Mhm.
it is really good to take a step back and be like, I can't do the right thing right now.
Or, we either think we're failing or we think, oh, I just let that happen.
Oh,
No.
yes, yes.
Oh, if I don't lay the hammer down right now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm complicit.
They're going to get away
No.
with it. Yeah, no.
No, I really want us to be able to do that. One of the things very, very high on my list of like, oh, is whining.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I said it's like a cheese grater to my soul. Like it just, I can't stand it. And so being able to learn to pause, to breathe, so that my next communication is usually something like, can you please use your regular voice? I have a really hard time hearing you when you're not using your regular
Mm-hmm.
voice.
Mm-hmm.
Which what I want to be like is, oh my God, if you don't stop whining, not
Right.
helpful. just not helpful. So it's not, that we're complicit or it's not okay. I think a thing for parents is when we are responding to the actions of our children, we have in mind one or maybe two intentional lessons we want them to learn from our response. But as parents, if we don't think about the innumerable secondary lessons that they may learn, then we can be doing some really big harm. So when I jump to something and I'm telling my 11-year-old about, how he needs to be, more intentional about his schoolwork, for example, and how I'm saying that, I know as a parent, one of my intentional lessons I want to teach is, be responsible, take pride in your work, that right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he'll get those lessons. But if the underlying message that I'm really telling him is you always got to be perfect. When mom comes around, you better look like you're working, even if you're I'm teaching him a lot of lessons in my response. We all are
Yeah.
as parents. And sometimes what happens as a person who works with adults is I get to the adult who goes back to those lessons they learned in childhood. And then if you were to tell that parent that that's what they taught them, they would go, oh my God, I never said that to
Right.
you. I would never, or my favorite. I want to say this is a cross-cultural reference, but I can specifically talk about the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't raise you like that. And I have to be like, as a therapist, you kind of did. Let's talk about it. Those words never came out of your mouth, but when you
Right.
responded this way, and this way, these were the unintended lessons that you taught her or him that you didn't even realize you were teaching them.
Yeah.
And so I have the benefit and fortune of being able to work with the adults and going back to those young moments that has informed my parenting in a lot of ways, as well as my own life. I
Right.
want to unintentionally teach my children some of the lessons I learned that my mother to this day is like horrified that she taught me that. She wasn't trying to,
Right.
but she did.
Yeah, I think it's hard to balance the weight that we know we have as parents to do a good job and to help our kids feel empowered and successful, while also knowing that if we don't take care of ourselves, then that goal will not be achieved. And sometimes we get so caught up in the I've got to do all the right things now that we don't ever take a step back and look at the big picture. And so I think that what you're discussing about self-care helps us to do that. And I think that's a really important topic and such an important topic that we are very excited that you will be coming back on January 23rd. You are going to come and teach us for a whole hour on this topic. Right now, we're taking like 15 minutes of your time, but we get you for a whole hour. And on Wednesday, I'm going to post the link for people to start registering. It's going to be a great opportunity for people to hear this information in more detail. And I'm hoping that they'll be able to walk away and really reflect on how that may impact their families and how they can. I mean, we're all looking for a better quality of life for our kids and for ourselves. And so often that's not just getting the right service in place or getting the right teacher there. It's more holistic than that. And so this is going to address that. So I'm very excited about that.
Yes, I'm excited as well. It's a take on self-care that I think is not talked about very often. And essentially, I want to lay the groundwork and give people an overview of 5 practices that can lead to a holistic self-care. And those practices include loving ourselves, and that has everything to do with how we esteem ourselves and our value.
Yeah.
Talking about protecting ourselves, which is about how do we establish and maintain functional boundaries. Talking about knowing ourselves, and that is all about identifying and sitting in our own reality. We talk about caring for ourselves, which is how do we look at ourselves on this spectrum of dependency and become more interdependent. And then finally, moderating ourselves. How do we sit in the both and is part of that and not fall to these extremes that we sometimes fall into as parents and as people. And so I'm really excited to just kind of share more about what that can look like. And because they're practices, they're things that we work at on a regular daily basis. But as we do that, imagine the kind of parent we are. Or let me say it this way. I am a different parent now that I know how to esteem myself and love myself than I was when I didn't. And
Right.
now that I can set boundaries and I understand what they mean, my parenting has been revolutionized. When I am in my own reality and not trying to be all good and perfect, the good and perfect parent, I'm a better parent. I'm
Yeah.
more moderate. When I realize that I don't have to do it all myself, but I'm also empowered to do some things myself, I'm just a better parent. I jokingly, but I kind of seriously say, like my twins, they're 4, they
Mhm.
caught me at a good time. It's in the middle of this self-discovery kind of thing. My son had a
Yeah.
lot more time,
Oops, sorry.
unaddressed and unhealed stuff, um, but it's never too late. I have to keep reminding myself that. But yeah, I'm very excited to kind of share that with folks to say, hey, if we can lean into these 5 practices, it just changes who we are as people and parents.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be incredibly beneficial for our audience. We will post the link on our social media on Wednesday. If you want early access, you can sign up for our email, which is in our link in bio, and I'll send out an email. My goal is Monday, hopefully. And they can connect with you via your social media here. You have
Yep,
a podcast, you post videos, like you have a lot of great content and many more things on the horizon that I'm excited to promote when that happens also. But thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
absolutely. Always love to be a part. Thanks,
Yes.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye bye.